Hello and welcome everyone. This presentation is about computer simulations of social behavior with cellular automata. And I would like to focus on one particular type of social behavior which I would like to simulate, which is human migration and cultural changes. And there is like plenty of different examples of this phenomenon. One of them can be enlargement of European Union when many people from Eastern countries moved to Western countries. Why? Because they had better job opportunities. Another example of human migration can be international students who are moving to Europe from other continents to finish master or PhD degree. And of course, you can find plenty other examples of human migration in the history and even nowadays. And my question is, can we simulate population shift? Can we simulate this human movement? And if we can do it on our computers, can we actually predict the impact on society with those movements? My name is Gaszewski, and I'm going to answer those questions for you today. I'm working as IT consultant at Soprasteria, Sweden, and I'm a software engineer specialized in Microsoft.NET. I was as well studying computer science at Lodz University of Technology, quite near of this place, and I'm currently studying behavioral science at Kristianstad University in Sweden. So, to introduce you to simulations on the computer and social behavior, I need to talk about Cellular Automata, because this is the main tool which I'm using for my simulations. After this, I need to explain to you something which is called acculturation model, because this is the model which I use to simulate specifically human migration. And in the end, I will show you a demo of that, and I will present you other examples of simulations using cellular automata when they were used to simulate social behavior. And in the end, we make a quick recap and summary, and I will try to convince you why cellular automata are very, very cool and easy and nice to use. So the first thing is cellular automata itself. Raise your hands if you know what cellular automata is. Okay, quite a few. For those of you who have never heard about this, I'm going to give you a quick recap. And after this presentation, if you have never heard about cellular automata, you are going to understand fully the concept of this, and you will be able even to implement it in your code if you wish so. So what is cellular automata? It is actually a computational model which consists of cells and have specific characteristics. The list of the characteristics you can see here on the slide, and on the left side you can see a visualization of an example of cellular automata. And such cellular automata consist of 4 characteristics: state, grid position, neighborhood, and rules. And we are going to make a quick recap of them. Regarding the cell, the simplest one, which we can imagine, is a cell which has a state on or off. The current is going or not going, true or false, 0 or 1, a binary state. I'm going to visualize it on my slides. State on will be black and state off will be white. The next thing is grid position. And you can have different types of cellular automata. Here you see one-dimensional cellular automata, which is actually a vector, a line of cells. And you can numerate them. You can start with 0 as typical programmer. So the first cell has number 0, the next one, etc. Then you can have two-dimensional cellular automata, where you have like actually columns and rows. And you can identify every cell with 2 numbers, 2 indices. And it's important to have a look at this because the next thing is neighbors of cells, and there are 2 very common types of neighborhood. They are so common and so common to use that they have own names. So on the left side, you can see von Neumann neighborhood, which consists of 4 cells all around the cell which we are analyzing. So if we have this particular cell, the neighborhood von Neumann for this is the cell up, down, to the left, and to the right. Another common neighborhood is Moore neighborhood when you're considering all the cells as a neighborhood. So not only up, down, left, right, but as well in the corners. So all around the cell. So if we take a look back on the example of two-dimensional cellular automata and consider this particular cell with the red border, if we apply von Neumann neighborhood, the neighbors for this particular cell are those cells marked with blue edge, to the left, to the right, and to the bottom. Nothing to the top because there is no more Cellular Automata in this. And the last thing, maybe the most important in Cellular Automata, is evolution rule. Those rules define how our Cellular Automata is changing with every iteration. And this is like the most crucial thing in this. So let's say that we have a rule which says, if I'm on and any of my neighbors is on, I will turn off, which means that if any of my neighbor has stayed on, is black, then I will turn off. I will become black. So if we have a look in this particular cell, which is the red highlighted, we can look at the neighborhood, left, right, and to the bottom. If I am on, and any of my neighbor is on, the neighbor on the bottom is on, then I will turn off. So in the next iteration, in the next evolution of my Cellular Automata, this particular cell should be turned off and look like this. And this rule we are going to apply for every single cell in our Cellular Automata. And in this way, our Cellular Automata is going to change with every iteration. But how we can define rules? Because we have a human description of the rule. I have some neighbors, they have some state. I will change my own state, me as a cell. But how the computer understands them? So let's make it simple. Take into consideration only 3 cells, to the left, to the right, and this one which we are considering right now. So if we have our rule which says this time, if only one of my neighbors is on, I will turn on as well. In this case, both our neighbors has the same state, not only one of them, so I will turn on in this case. And we can translate it to the numbers. Every black cell we can mark as 1, and every white cell we can mark as 0. It's like typical Boolean calculation. And then we have numbers, and computer likes numbers, and mathematicians likes numbers as well. And here, if we consider 3 cells, every cell can have state 0 or 1, and all of them return some other state, which in this case, for example, is 0. So the question is, how many possible combinations we can have of those particular cells? We have 3 cells, every each of them can have 0 and 1. How many combinations we can figure it out based on this? It's a question for you. 8. Yes, that was a very good question, a very good answer. And this is going to look very familiar for us because we are getting an output in form of 8 variations. And what is 8 numbers which are 0 or 1? It's a bit. And 8 of them, it's 1 byte. So actually we can define our rules as bytes, different bytes. In this case, the specific rule which we are looking at right now is so specific that it has own name, rule 90. Why it's called 90? Because if we will take all possible combinations, combine them to 1 byte, and convert to decimal system, we will get number 90. That's why the specific rule has name 90. You can change those digits, and you can get different rules. But why this specific rule is very interesting? So let's have a look at how this Cellular Automata will evolve in the time. So we have one row, it's our Cellular Automata, and we will check what will happen in the next generation when we would like to evolve all of the cells in our Cellular Automata. Let's jump to the cell in the middle. Only one of our neighbors has to be black, so we will be still black. If not, we will turn off. So we have white, and the next cell should become white. Let's have a look. This is next generation, and this thing exactly happened. Why those one changed to the black color? Because our rule said that exactly one of our neighbors has to have different states. Then I will change the color. And if we will continue applying this pattern on every cell in every generation, we'll keep growing the pattern, keep growing, and if we will zoom out and try to keep again adding next generations of our one-dimensional Cellular Automata, we will receive this pattern. And this is why it's very interesting, because you can see that this is quite a distinctive pattern, which is repetitive, and no matter how many times you are going to repeat it, you will receive exactly the same pattern, but just zoomed out. And as you can see, it's a combination actually of triangles. This is one big triangle, which consists of smaller triangles, and those smaller triangles has even triangles embedded in itself, and it's a repeating pattern all the time. And this is so interesting and so particular that it has even own names, this pattern. This pattern is called Sierpiński triangle because it's a set of triangles. And this is only one example, specific one. There is another one for two-dimensional cellular automata, which is called the game of life. And the question for you, have you ever heard about game of life? Okay, even more than people showing hands before. But I ask about Game of Life, not Game of Thrones. Yes? I mean, in the end, in both cases, someone is going to die. But yeah, it can be confusing. But for the Game of Life, we have 3 rules, birth, life, and death. So the rule about the birth says that a dead cell that has exactly 3 alive neighbors becomes alive. So if we have nothing in our cell, but around this nothing are 3 other living cells, this cell becomes alive. Then we have the state which is life. A cell with 2 or 3 neighbors stays alive. And the last one is death. If the cell has different numbers than 2 and 3, then the cell dies. So if in my neighborhood, my SSL, if in my neighborhood there's only 1 living cell, I'm dying because I feel lonely. If there is more than 3, it's becoming crowded, and I'm dying because it's overcrowded. And on the left side, you can see some visualization of this. And what is very interesting, or if you have like difficulties to grasp the concept, you can think about a surface with bacteria. And you can simulate using this cellular automata how bacteria are going to multiply or die on the surface. So every cell can represent a bacteria, for example. And this is as well one of the most common examples of cellular automata. But this was the technical part. As I told you at the beginning, I'm going to run simulations on human migration, and the question is, okay, I have a technical tool, cellular automata, but how am I going to translate human migration to something which I can simulate in the code? And I used a particular model from behavioral science, which is called acculturation model. This model was developed by John Berry. It is a Canadian psychologist, and he is using the term acculturation. And in his model, he built this model based on strategies which an individual can have when this individual is meeting people from other cultural background. So an example can be me. I born in Poland. I moved to Sweden. So me as a person moving from Poland, from one cultural background, moving to Sweden where there's another cultural background, I can have different strategies, how I'm going to cope with the situation and how I'm going to interact with people from new minority group, from host society. And this model is as well interesting, by the way, because it takes into consideration not only psychological perspective on the individual level, but as well from the psychology, because it takes into consideration as well social aspects, how the group and society can look like. And I mentioned new strategies. And he developed 4 strategies for individuals. So individual from the minority group meeting people from majority group can have 4 distinctive strategies according to this model. The first one is separation, when the individual from a minority would like to separate and cultivate own cultural background, cultivate own cultural heritage, traditions, etc. And it's not exactly interesting in getting to know people from majority group, getting to know the host society. Another strategy is assimilation, when the person which is coming to the new environment would like to be assimilated, to become fully the part of the new society which this individual is meeting. And at the same time giving up own cultural heritage. It's very important because we have similar strategy, which is called integration. But in this case, the individual would like to practice own cultural background and is interested in interaction with people from other cultural background. And this I would like to stress out because depending on the context, sometimes those terms can be used exchangeably. But regarding the acculturation model, there are two different concepts. And the last one is marginalization, when the individual is not interested in cultivating own heritage and it's not interested in getting to know the people from other culture. And in this context, this person can be seen as marginalized. And this is like, from the psychological perspective, is the worst possible outcome because this person can feel disconnected both from own original society, but as well from the new society where the person came to. And that was the strategies for the individuals, and the same equivalents are for the majority group, for the host society. So a host society can have as well segregation strategy. It's equivalent for separation for the individual. So if the host society has segregation acculturation strategy, then they would like to separate themselves from the newcomers and they don't want to interact with them. If they have a strategy melting pot, you can imagine like a pot when you want to melt some material into one. So in this strategy, the majority group would like to turn the minority to themselves. So newcomers are becoming actually our own, you can say. The next equivalent is multiculturalism, where people would like to live together with people from different cultures, and all people, all the individuals can practice own traditions, own cultural background, etc. And the last one is exclusion, and this is equivalent for marginalization, when the host majority doesn't want to engage newcomers in own culture, and they are not interested in interacting with them. So I use Cellular Automata, and I use this acculturation model to try to simulate what will happen if people from two different cultural backgrounds with different strategies will meet each other. So this is an example of such simulation. On the left side, you can see visualization of Cellular Automata. And you can see many cells. A black cell, you can imagine that it's actually a map. In Google Maps, for example, or a map of some neighborhood in the city. And the black cell represents empty space where an individual can move into. The blue cells represents majority group, the host society, and the orange cell represents newcomers. And every individual can move inside the Cellular Automata to the empty space. Why and where this individual is moving and can move depends on cultural strategy, acculturation strategy. So technically, I took such a matrix. I took 20% of cells to reserve as empty spaces, and the rest I put individuals. And among those individuals, 75% of them is majority group with acculturation strategy melting pot, the blue one. And minority, orange one, is 25% of resting cells, and they have a separation strategy. And here I have a question for you. Make like visualization in your head. Knowing those strategies and knowing how it looks like as random points is like randomly generated starting point, not really a real life case, but for the simulation we need to start with something. So imagine what will be the final state of this Cellular Automata, because spoiler alert, we will reach some state when this Cellular Automata is not evolving anymore. How it will look like after running all possible evolutions. Make this imaginary exercise in your head, and I will show you the solution soon. So if the majority has a strategy melting pot and minority separation, the result will look like this. And it's very interesting because, as I told you, this Cellular Automata is not changing anymore. It's not evolving anymore in some level. And you can see some particular stuff. For the first, you can see clear clusters of minority group. You can see one cluster, another, third one, big fourth one, fifth, sixth one, and some individuals. So you can see that minority in this society with this acculturation strategy, minority group newcomers formed very distinctive clusters with itself. This is one thing. Another thing is that if you will look closer, you can see that those clusters are surrounded by empty black spaces, so no one is occupying the space. So it's like clear separation, if we are thinking about like this. Meanwhile, the majority group, it's spread all over around. They are not forming clusters, but they are separating themselves from those newcomers. And I think I can try to show you a demo of this. Can I? Yes, so here I built an application. It's simple WPF application written in C#. As I told you, I'm focused on .NET, but you can use any language you want, any platform you want. It's a simple algorithm to implement. So I can type the size of my Canva, let's say 15 and 15, and I had the following strategies for majority. It was melting pot. I need to write the code of the strategy, and then minority, it was separation. Separation has number 1, and I need to generate for the first some canvas. So here we have our Cellular Automata at the starting point with totally random positions. As I said, it's not very natural one, but to start simulations, we need to start with something. And then if I will press simulate again, then I'm running the evolution of the next Cellular Automata. So my cells are going to move based on the acculturation strategies. And you see that there was some movement. I can just press keeping pressing and evolving. You see that the clusters are already forming. One individual is jumping here and there, and then I'm pressing simulate one more time, and nothing happens. So this particular Cellular Automata reached like a final state. Nothing is changing anymore with those conditions which we have. And again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 huge clusters and some small groups. As you can see, they are like separated by blank spaces. So it's the same result as I show you on the screen. But let's have a look on other examples. So if our majority group has melting pot strategy again, but this time minority has strategy assimilation. So the host society expect from others to melt into the host society, and the minority would like to become a majority, would like to give up on cultural background and become like a new person. So what will happen in this case? Let's have a look. Melting pot and assimilation. Assimilation has number 2. So I generated a new Canva with some random conditions, and I'm pressing simulate. I'm pressing again, and it's not a bug, it's a feature, because this Cellular Automata is not changing at all. Do you have any ideas why? Exactly. They are evenly spread. They both applied own acculturation strategies where the majority would like newcomers to melt into them, and newcomers would like to melt into the host society. So they have like a common goal. And actually, to be precise, those green colors, which is like newcomers, in the end, they are becoming blue because they would like to give up own heritage and become the part of host society. That's why they don't need to move, because they feel comfy with each other. Let's take one more example, the last one, when the majority has acculturation strategy exclusion and minority marginalization. So majority had exclusion, which is number 8, and minority had marginalization, which is number 4. I regenerate my Canva. It's quite pinky. This dark pink is majority, and light pink is a minority. I'll run the simulation again, and I just keep pressing. It's quite movable. A lot of is happening with every evolution. We cannot see any clear pattern yet. We cannot like stop. I'm just all the time pressing, and it's just moving. However, even though we cannot reach a final state as before, I can run this simulation like in eternity and all the time, and it will never stop. But we can see some patterns. You can see that, like, literally, the minority was pushed to the corner. Majority group, host society, separated themselves from the minority and moved to one side of the Canva. And majority is not moving inside themselves, really. However, minority was pushed to the corner, and they are still moving. Why is that? Because they have this strategy marginalization, and they want to give up own cultural heritage, and they are not interested in interacting with the host society, and that's why they are moving all the time. And as I said, I cannot reach final state because those from the majority group, they will be moving with every evolution. They cannot like find own place. So that was the simulation which I built based on acculturation model. And as you see, depending on the conditions and depending on the strategies which you sum up together, you can get very different results, and it can come to some analyze if the model is correct and what will happen if you combine people with specific strategies. But this presentation is generally about social behavior simulations, and I have for you some other examples. So I checked the current or late research papers, like scientific research, and cellular automata is still in use, even though it's a very old concept. And you can find interesting cases. This one is from 2017, like around 6 years ago, so it's not like a very old research paper. It's done, by the way, by a Polish guy. And his paper is Graph Cellular Automata with Relation-Based Neighborhoods of Cells for Complex Systems Modeling, a case of traffic simulation. Okay, it's about cars, so maybe it's not really about social behavior. But on the other hand, if we have a traffic jam, it strongly depends on our behavior, our as drivers on the way. And cellular automata are perfect to run simulations based on the traffic jams, for example. Another one, it's like, I was very surprised I found it. It's from 2020. And I would not expect so spectacular outcomes from this paper research. Here you can see that researchers incorporated cellular automata to some other model, which is called NERA model. I have no idea how it works. However, they combined those two models to run analysis. It was published in Computational and Applied Mathematics. It was not like software focused, but it was more focused on simulations. And they were simulating illegal drug consumption. How they did that? They built cellular automata. They figured out what kind of states their cells can have. And there were cells with 4 different states. State 0, it was non-user of drugs. State 1, it was experimental one, so maybe during the party can smoke some pot or stuff like that. The second one is recreational, which is like repetitively smoking, taking drugs. And the third one is, or fourth one in this case, is real addict user of drugs. So they used cellular automata to run simulations, and they verified and validated this model using real data from Washington from 2017. And what was very interesting, they used starting data from the beginning of the period of collecting the data. They ran their model with cellular automata, and what is very surprising and as well very exciting for me is that they reached almost the same result as we observed in the reality. So illegal drug consumption in Washington, it was some process which was developed over the time. They took starting point in their model and they get the same result as it happened in the reality. Why is it important? Because now you can see that you can use cellular automata not only to make a hobby project, to simulate theoretical psychological models. You can use this model to actually predict what will happen in the society in specific conditions. In this case, illegal drug consumption. So this became a very useful tool, not only for us programmers, but as well we can build a system or some other more complex model and deliver it to those who are deciding about politics in some specific regions, for healthcare and other institutions. So it was very exciting seeing that this is happening, and this is like from 2020. It's not like old paper. And for me, it's like the best example why Cellular Automata are so cool. And I'm seeing that some of you are thinking like, yes, very interesting indeed. But those guys there in the corner are like, the level of nerdiness of this presentation is exceeding my limits for right now. So we can jump to last slides. I was showing you my personal project about human migration and simulation using Cellular Automata. I was showing you like real cases in scientific field, how to simulate other stuff like traffic jam or drug consumption. But there are as well other cases. We can use Cellular Automata to study how a fire is spreading in the forest. We can use Cellular Automata to study how diseases are spreading. It could be quite legitimate case like 3 years ago, you know. Another example of how we can apply Cellular Automata is to run simulations of ecological system where every cell can represent, for example, some specific type of bird or some specific type of animal and how they are interacting with each other. So in this case, for example, we can predict if some specific type of animal or flower can disappear from our ecological system. Another example is urban development. Every cell can represent a different item in our urban environment. It can be institution, housing, parks, etc. And then we can check how, based on the historical data, for example, how the urban area is developing. And what is the impact of adding, for example, a lot of buildings in some specific area, removing parks and stuff like that. So there are like plenty other use cases than only social behavior. And now I would like to summarize this talk, because I told you that after this talk you are going to learn some stuff. So first thing, those of you who have never heard about Cellular Automata, you probably understand how it works right now. And it's easy to understand, and when it's easy to understand, it should be as well easy to implement. And like, come on, this talk was less than 40 minutes. And if you don't know Cellular Automata, now you learned whole new thing, whole new computational model. I show you as well that you can use Cellular Automata to simulate social behavior. For example, human migration and cultural changes. I show you as well how you can use acculturation strategies to do that. And the thing which I would like to point out here is that it's not only that I use some concept from psychology and apply it in my computational model. It can work as well in an opposite direction. When you have some theory in social science, you can use it in the computer to run some simulations, and then you can discover, for example, new rules, new heuristics, for example, and extend your model or verify if your model was correctly thought. I show you as well with the research about illegal drug consumption that you can use this model as well to predict the result. So you can as well think about planning, like for example in the Washington state, you can plan what kind of actions you need to take to decrease or increase, depending on the aim, the drug consumption in the area. And the last thing, which I didn't mention before, but maybe you found it on the description of this talk, is that Cellular Automata in some cases can be much better option than AI and ML, because right now we have huge hype on artificial intelligence and machine learning. We have a lot of tools, we have a lot of services which we can use and easy build any application based on AI or ML. But if you would like to, for example, understand how to build neural networks, I will not be able to give you deep understanding of that during like 30 minutes talk and explaining all the layers of neural network, mathematical formulas, etc. But regarding the Cellular Automata, it's very easy to grasp and very nice to visualize as well. So it's it's easy to understand, and when it's not so complex, it is as well easier to implement. If I would like to run similar simulations with the human migration, which I show you, using AI, I would need to put much more work to do that than using Cellular Automata. So the next time, if it would happen that you are going to implement some computer simulations, let's consider if maybe Cellular Automata are good for your case. You can apply AI for everything right now, but in some cases, Cellular Automata can be more beneficial. That was everything from me, and all the questions which I asked you until now are done. And now I have one question for you, if you have any questions regarding the presentation.